Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat mga kaibigan. Isang karangalang makasama kayo sa isa na namang edisyon ng ating palatuntunang tapatan sa Aristocrat. Ang paksa pong napili para sa araw na ito ay updates sa Zamboanga at pangkalahatang pananaw tungkol sa Mindanao. Marami po kaming inanyayahang mga panauhing magsasalita at makikilahok sana. Subalit mayroong mga pagkakataon na hindi maiiwasan, hindi sila makakarating. But we are happy. We have with us former Senator Pimentel, the author of the Local Government Code, and the Secretary General of the Philippine Red Cross, si Binibining Gwen. Pag-uusapan natin ang Mindanao. Ano ba talagang mayroon sa Mindanao at bakit may kaguluhan? Kababalik ko pa lamang po mula sa Zamboanga kahapon at nakita ng aking mga mata kung ano talaga ang nagaganap sa Zamboanga. To start with, merong 4 na pong portalets doon sa sports complex. Sa 40 portalets, meron pong higit sa 70,000 kataong naninirahan doon sa sports complex. Can you imagine sa kanilang pagtugon sa call of nature kung ano ang magaganap? Gaano ba kahalaga ang Mindanao sa Pilipinas? May nagsasabing baka naman magkakaroon na ng bagong republika. At yan ay gustong-gusto ng ilang mga gustong kumita sa mga deal na magaganap. Alam po ba ninyo na 7% ng kahoy sa Pilipinas ay mula sa Mindanao? 43% ng agricultural output ay mula sa Mindanao. 40% ng food requirements ay mula sa Mindanao. 30% ng national food trade ang nagaganap sa Mindanao. 32% ng ating po namang fishery products at higit sa kalahati ng total commercial fish catch ay mula sa Mindanao. May 13 fishing firms sa Mindanao. Karamihan nasa General Santos at sa Zamboanga. Sila po yung nag-export ng 80% ng tuna na mula sa Pilipinas. Sa Mindanao po, nagmumula ang 100% ng mga produktong goma, rubber products. 75% ng kape sa Pilipinas ay mula sa Mindanao. 1/3 ng livestock ay mula rin sa Mindanao. Sa Mindanao matatagpuan ang 25% ng mina sa Pilipinas. Pinakamalaking nickel reserves ay nasa Hilagang Silangan at Katimugang Mindanao. May nakukuhang ginto at tingga sa Agusan at Davao provinces. Ang pinakamalaking pagawaan ng semento ay nasa Davao. Noong pong 2012, ang registered investment sa Mindanao ay umabot sa 19 na bilyon. Ang local investments ay nasa minahan, fishing, fish canning, power generation at distribution, pag-aalaga ng prutas at paglalata ng mga produkto, rubber manufacturing, banana growing at export, mga produktong mula sa nyug, rural banking, property development, wholesale at retail consumer goods selling, automotive fuel selling, at pagbebenta rin ng mga sasakyang pampasahero. Hiniling ko po sa Department of Budget and Management na ibahagi kung gaano na ang nailabas na salapi sa Mindanao, partikular sa ARMM. Subalit, hindi po umabot sa panahon sapagkat ayon sa kanila, mula na manungkulan si Nurmiswari ay nasa archives na nila yung datos tungkol sa fund releases. Mula noong September 11, 2001 attacks sa New York, ang Mindanao ay binigyan ng attention ng foreign donors. Ang USAID nagbigay ng $190 million sa grants sa Mindanao Peace and Development Program. Ang World Bank may $400 million para sa rehabilitation needs ng MILF at iba pang mga katutubo. Marami na pong administrasyon ang dumaan, subalit nananatiling mahirap pa rin ang karamihan sa Mindanao. Ang tanong bakit? Anong nangyari? Anong sitwasyon? Kulang ba sa batas o kulang ba sa direksyon ang pamahalaan? Simulan muna natin kay Senador Nene Pimentel na siyang may akda ng Local Government Code kung anong kanyang pananaw, anong pinag-ugatan ng kaguluhan sa Zamboanga at sa Mindanao. Senator Nene Pimentel, please. Good morning.
Salamat, Melo at mga kapatid. Una sa lahat, gusto kong bigyan kaunting diin na ang problema doon, tinatawag natin problema sa Mindanao, hindi masusolve yan kung hindi inclusive ang approach ng gobyerno in tackling the problem. By that I mean, hindi po pwede na ang kausapin lamang at this time MILF to the exclusion of the MNLF na yun ang unang kinausap noong mga araw. Ang ibig sabihin, kung ipagpatuloy yung sistema na by faction ang kausapin, there will be no end to the problem because kahit magkaroon ng, you might say, understanding between the MNLF and the government, the MILF and the government, what is to prevent another group from emerging tomorrow and saying, hindi kami kasali dyan. Kami naman, kausapin nyo. At siguro you can already see indications of that na merong bagong grupo na ang tawag sa kanila BIFF. Kung makausap yung BIFF, bukas siguro another FF na naman. So, walang katapusan ang ibig sabihin noon. Which means that para na ako, I sound like a broken record, but I would like to assert this proposal again as the solution to the problem, and that is the adoption of a federal form of government, giving the Moro peoples a federal state of their own within the Republic of the Philippines, hindi po separate. Now, before I give the microphone to Melo, I'd like to add that the federal system of addressing secessionist movements is an accepted international way of doing things. And that is why nakikita ninyo that one of the effects of adverse effects of forcing separate ethnic groups to come together and belong to one parang republican entity like Yugoslavia broke up when Marshal Tito died into several states, Herzegovina, Serbia, ano po yung mga iba doon. Because iba-iba nga ang ugali ng tao. So ang mga Moro sa Mindanao, mga Pilipino yon, but at the same time, yung kanilang kultura and then tradition, baka hindi gaanong nabibigyan ng pansin at saka acknowledgement and recognition. And that is why, if you give them a federal state, sigurado, yung kanilang tradisyon at saka kultura will be respected and followed. So,
Kanina, bago ko tanongin si Gwen, hindi ho kaya magkaroon ng problema dyan? Dahilan sa, ito, hayagan na rin lang naman, pinag-aawayan yung pork barrel. Baka pati yung mga kaibigan natin Muslim, ma-influensya na rin ang kagandahan ng pork barrel at mag-away-away na.
Well, number one, hindi siguro kasi ayaw naman lang kumain ng pork.
Maliwanag yan.
That's one possibility. But anyway, kidding aside, the thing is that under the federal system, the federal state, for example, of Muslim Mindanao will get a separate, you might say, appropriations for their needs, and then they can also raise their own funds within the ambit of their federal state. And therefore, mas closer pa ang supervision ng mga tao sa kanilang mga legislators sapagkat nandun sa grupo territorial lang nila, hindi naman dito naka-base ng Maynila eh. And so you can just imagine the advantage of having a federal system where the federal states within the Republic of the Philippines would have legislators and public officials closer to the people in their own respective federal states, you see.
But definitely, Senator Nene, you will agree with me that there were representatives elected by the Muslims themselves who ought to have represented their interests at the House of Representatives and the Senate. Don't you think so?
Well, as far as your observation goes, you have a point there. But the fact is that up to now, for example, Melo, one of the mga daing ng mga Muslim people, wala kami senador. You look at the structure of the Philippine Senate. Meron bang Muslim dyan? Wala. And it was only after when Cory was in power that Nina Rasol and yung taga Lanao, the father of this very
Tamano.
Yeah.
Tamano. Senator Mamintal Tamano.
Mamintal Tamano.
And there was Salipada Pendatun.
Yeah, where two Muslims represented the Muslim people in the Senate. After that, wala na. But you try, kung meron bang Muslim ngayon mananalo in a national election, hindi mangyari yun. I don't think they can win, considering the problems that are being attributed to them. Kasi pag kandidato sila, Muslim ito. Tingnan mo ang gulo sa Zamboanga. Even if they have nothing to do with the gulo in Zamboanga, parang affected sila by the reputation, you might say, of the people involved in the controversy in Zamboanga. So let me just repeat that I think that there is much more to be gained in terms of according the people of Mindanao and of the Philippines, because ang gulo doon sa Mindanao, hindi lang Mindanao ang apektado, yung buong bansa ang apektado. So if we can have this kind of a solution, I think we should try it, even if it's mabusisi, because you have to amend the entire constitution of the Republic.
And once you amend the Constitution, there will be no stopping of the opening of the floodgates for other amendments, right, Mr. Senator?
There will be no?
Stopping the opening of the floodgates for other amendments.
Well, obviously, if you do not have a specific, you might say, plan for the amendment of the Constitution, that is why when I speak of amending the Constitution by adopting the federal system, ang daming repercussions niyan. Most of the, I think, at least 14 articles of the Constitution would be affected by just the idea of amending the Constitution to adopt the federal system. Marami. Pati mga eleksyon ng mga local, pati eleksyon ng mga national officials will be affected by it.
Very well. Oh, now, let's hear from someone who knows what's happening in Zamboanga. I'm referring to the Secretary General of the Philippine Red Cross to give us a brief presentation of what's going on. Secretary General Gwen, please.
Thank you very much, Melo. Good morning, Senator Pimentel. And to all of you, good morning. I will give you a brief, the updates, okay, in what's happening in Zamboanga. Just so you would know the extent of needs also on the ground. Next slide, please. Okay, so as of today, we have about 19,152 families that were affected, are still in the evacuation centers. We only count those who are in the evacuation centers. And there are about 95,762 individuals in 33 evacuation centers in Zamboanga City alone. I'm not talking about I'm not going to talk about it in Basilan and Sulu or anywhere, but only in Zamboanga City. Okay. So then we have about 184 hostages that were released, rescued, and processed already. And we don't know yet if there are still hostages, that are with the MNLF. So these are the casualties figures for that indicates PNP and AFPs or soldiers or policemen that were hurt and died, in action. So for AFP, we have 18 that were killed in action, wounded in action 167, or total of 185 for the AFP. PNP, we have 5 killed in action, 14 wounded in action, total of 19. Then for MNLF, this figure came from the government. So we have the arrested number of MNLF are 247, surrendered 24, MNLF killed 164. Then for casualties or civilians, okay, we have 12 deaths and 72 injured. Household damage as of today in our count 9,300. Okay, but from the city government's list or figures, they have reached up to more than 10,000 already. So these are the 12 Red Cross staff and volunteers who were injured in line of duty, but they're okay now. So then I just want you to take a close look at these two maps, satellite maps. So the map on the right side is actually a map taken from the UN Institute of Training and Research last August 28, where everything is still normal and okay. Then as of September 17, look at the size and an extent of damage. Okay, so many houses were burned already. That's in Barangay Santa Catalina. Now let's go to the next slide. You can see here Barangay Rio Hondo. And by the way, every day there is still burning. So every day may burning po sa Zamboanga of houses. So ito yan. So I don't know how the people will recover from this crisis. And this is Mariki. Okay, this is the coastal area. Aside from what you see, yung houses burned, there are a lot of houses built on stilt. Or there are a lot of families, they reside or live sa boat. Ito yung mga badyaw, communities. So they stay in this area. So look at the extent of damage. So those are the basic information I want to give to you. Now, what have we done so far? The Red Cross have fed more than 10,000 families every day since day 1 up to day 14th. But still, there are already a lot of food that were donated. So we have concentrated in other efforts or needs. So we stop on day 14. So we have provided over 140,000 meals to the evacuees. Now, with the help of private individuals and establishments, we were able to produce food and serve to these people. But now it's in terms of food, there's really no gap as of today. Now, for the health is there's an increasing concern in terms of health issues. Kasi nakita naman ninyo, like what Melo have mentioned this morning, there are only 40 portalets in the biggest evacuation center in Zamboanga City. Yun yung grandstand. Sa grandstand, if you compute 40 portalets, okay, for 60,000 individuals, that's about, the ratio is over 100,000 per portalet. Of course, it's so impossible for them to use the portalet. So, just imagine, what's the waste and sanitation in the area? Okay. Waste management, sanitation concern in the area. So, very bad. Then, in terms of water supply for drinking, no problem. Red Cross we have set up 10 water bladders that we continue to supply water. We are producing 230,000 liters of water every day. That's enough for drinking and a bit of washing. But yung laundry, paano naman? And bathing, no? So, wala ring shower facility na covered or protected yung mga beneficiaries natin or evacuees. So it's one area that we're looking into, but good that the local government have agreed to already set up emergency latrines and emergency shower areas in the grandstand. Now, security. there is no really clear security information on the ground. Every now and then, may sporadic firing, still may sunog. Then they would receive text messages, okay, which the people are, getting more and more concerned every day. Kasi may mga text messages saying that mag-bomb sa gas station. Last Friday, after the first prayer, papasukin daw yung buong city. Then, yung ginagamit yung opportunity na ganito ng mga, ill-willed people na para manakot pa ng mga, mga people in Zamboanga who are already, they are very
stressed
fearful,
yung mga
so
tao.
stressed.
Oo.
Yes, sa mga pangyayari. Then may mga ganito mga natanggap na mga messages. So in terms of security, nakakatakot because yung mga ganitong messages. Plus, hindi lang yun, pati mga workers natin, medyo affected na din because their family members won't allow them to go and work. Then, on child protection, we are trying our best to institute child-friendly and child protection space in the area. Kasi there was already one case of rape that was reported. A 6-year-old girl was raped by the uncle. Good enough that the uncle was arrested. Then, but still, may incident na ganito. Then, walang partition, in the grandstand. Melo saw it. There's no, partition. No, it's not safe for children actually. So we're trying our best to help, in coming up with a child-friendly and protection space. Now, education. There are 50 schools, in Zamboanga City, for elementary, then I think 500 in total, lahat ng schools. But 50% were open. There's a low attendance, from the students. Maybe one, takot pa rin yung mga tao. Number two, wala namang pera pampasok kasi walang activity talaga. So, what we have done, we are helping in terms of giving temporary education sa mga evacuation centers. And there are 8 elementary schools and 2 high schools that were burned dito sa mga barangays na to. So, may mga students na will not be able to go to school for the next 3 to 6 months. Then, long-term economic effect. Hindi lang po Zamboanga ang affected dito. Affected yung mga nearby islands, tulad ng Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and Basilan. There is no economic activity in these areas. So, yung long-term na to that may lead to humanitarian concerns also because of economic problems. Hindi lang yun. Also, this will have social concerns implication. And psychologically, yung mga tao, paano babangon, especially in Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and Basilan, where they were very depressed already from the start, naging ganito pa, nadagdagan pa. So how will we boost the morale of these people in these areas?
Okay. One thing, I heard from the Coast Guard that there's only one trip to Basilan, to Isabela and Lamitan. So, magsasalubungan yung dalawang bangka, and that's the end. Ganon din yung biyahe sa Sulu, isang papuntang Sulu, isang mula Sulu patungong sa Zamboanga. And the passengers are requested to check in at least 3 hours before the trip dahil very tight ang security. Would you have any information as to the number of people who lost their jobs because of the crisis in Zamboanga?
Well, almost everybody lost their jobs kasi walang activity. So, walang store na nag-o-open. Kung may nag-o-open man na store or hotels, may time lang. Alam ni Melo yan. At about 5 o'clock, umuwi yung mga cooks, yung mga crew ng hotel because of the curfew. In the morning, late na pumapasok yung iba because of the curfew. So, maraming stores. It's like a ghost town. I'm from Zamboanga and Holo, but when I went to Zamboanga, hindi ko na namukaan na Zamboanga pala to. A lot has changed. I saw a picture of a very depressed city, na talagang kawawang-kawawa, ang daming nagsasuffer. Even though wala sila sa evacuation center, people who are in their household still nagsasuffer. Walang trabaho walang mabilan ng pagkain. Limited ang movement. So, yun yung problem natin sa ngayon. Maraming nawawala ng livelihood. At hindi lang yon. Siyempre, pag nag-normalize na to, they still need to pay their rental fees sa bahay. They still need to pay yung mga loans nila. They still need to, so anong gagamitin nila ng pera? 3 weeks nang walang trabaho.
Yeah. And to think that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas in Zamboanga was declared within the danger zone. So walang transaction. They had to transfer to another area. So if this is happening in Zamboanga, I really don't know what will happen next, because from what I saw, I all the while thought yung mga sasakyan ng Red Cross na may bandera, sa Lebanon ko lang makikita through CNN and BBC. But that's what I saw in Zamboanga, where Red Cross vehicles na magkaka-convoy, lahat may bandera, pumapasok sa mga deserted areas. And to think that the Red Cross Zamboanga chapter is within a red zone, sila na lang ang nag-uopisina ron.
Walang tao.
Wala nang tao. It's a ghost area dun sa may patungo sa Fort Pilar. Kanine, do you recall any similar event in the Philippines like what's happening in Zamboanga today?
Well, vaguely, nung nag-aklas si Colonel, sino ba yun? Nakalimutan ko pangalan.
This was in 89.
O yung kuhan yung...
Gringonasan.
Ano?
Gringonasan o si Alex Noble sa Mindanao?
Alex Noble.
Alex Noble sa
When
Mindanao.
Colonel
Okay.
Noble parang revolted or seceded from the government. He also converted Cagayan de Oro into a ghost town. Pero wala namang sinunog. Hindi the devastation of Zamboanga today is a far cry from what has been happening in other areas. Incomparable sa tingin ko. Because you're talking, Melo, of highly urbanized areas where a lot of people are living in. So makikita mo ang damage sa kanila because dikit-dikit yung mga bahay pagkatapos sinunog ang isang shanty. You can just imagine the effect of that. Yung buong territory na ang masusunog because the fire department cannot come in and render assistance. Barilin sila. So you see how difficult the situation is. So really, what happened to Zamboanga has to be treated in a manner that's different. And I'm so happy that the Red Cross is taking the lead. There are other organizations that can also take the lead here and help out. The Catholic Church, for example.
Yes, the CRS is getting into the picture, I was told. And what I saw last Saturday was the tents from DOH. But when I saw the tents were all right. But there was no doctor, there was no nurse. And yesterday, when I returned to the area, there was none because it's Sunday. They'll return on Monday. It's as if people don't get sick on weekends. But I don't know, kanine, is it within the purview of the local government to respond to this? Don't you think?
You know, actually, tulad ng nabanggit ko sa iyo kanina, I in fact invited Mayor Climaco to honor our invitation so that we can have a forum like this one. So she can explain from first-hand account ano nangyari doon. But of course, duty calls her first to be there in Zamboanga, not to be anywhere else. I can understand that. So sabi niya, I'm very sorry pero hindi ko kayang umalis na Zamboanga at this point in time. Ang kanilang daing, one of the things that they have been airing publicly is the fact that the OPAP does not seem to be able to respond adequately to the needs of Zamboanga City today. And we have to single out some agencies of government, Melo, because the president was there. Nandun na siya eh. And she obviously was trying to assure the people that the government is in control of the situation. But saying that and delivering essential services are two different things. Like for example, nabanggit kanina na ang pangangailangan ng mga evacuation centers. My God, in terms of food and medicine lang, just these two areas, let alone the education that was also brought out, na talagang napakalaki ang pangangailangan. And that is why yung OPAP, which is supposedly designed to handle emergencies of this kind, I suppose, dapat makita nila ang presence doon and the actual rendition of the services that the government is supposed to extend to areas that are afflicted in this kind of...
I heard some people in Zamboanga asking for pictures of Secretary Deles so that they will be reminded how she looks like, because she was not seen in Zamboanga for a long, long time. As alleged by some people, she was busy defending the budget before the Senate and the House of Representatives. But I guess the request will be transmitted to her. I'll tell her today that people in Zamboanga would need her pictures there. But anyway, sa Red Cross po, hanggang kailan kayo makatutugon sa pangangailangan ng mga tao?
We are prepared to respond, no? Maging 3 months man to, 6 months, 1 year. But in the Red Cross, we want to finish all these operations in 3 months because we really have to have a semblance of normalcy already in the area by this time. Yung effect nito, hindi lang economic yung ganyan, yung psychological effect sa lahat, bata, matanda, or whoever in Zamboanga. We should be able to already institute improvement, normalcy in the area. Kung hindi, then this will even be, more difficult for us to respond pag humaba pa ito. Okay? But we are ready. Hindi lang naman yung problema natin, not only Zamboanga there are also a lot of disasters happening in the country. So kung mas mapabilis natin to, mas maganda kasi we also need resources to respond to other crises or emergencies in the country. You have asked Melo earlier, ilang tao bang nawawalan ng trabaho? I just want to give you an idea of how much Zamboanga City is losing every single day. They are losing about 336,685 pesos a day. Flash natin to. So, and I will show you, nandito siya, Charmy. I will show you kung ano yung nito, no? Kung saan, anong trade, no?
Ayan, mabuti to. We'll have an idea. Okay? It seems that massage parlors are the ones open at night despite the curfew in Zamboanga. Okay?
Good thing that yung power tuloy-tuloy. Nung wala pang crisis, ang power sa Zamboanga ay meron silang at least 8 hours na brownout a day. Good thing naman, di nila pinatay yung ilaw. No? So, pero yung mga wala talagang nangyayari doon.
Wala raw kasing demand for electric power dahil most business establishments are closed. Can you imagine Jollibee and McDonald's near the City Hall remain closed?
Yes.
Okay. The McDonald's in front of the Immaculate Conception Cathedral in Zamboanga was opened yesterday morning at 7 o'clock. However, yung pinto lang ang bukas at yung mga paligid, nakababa pa yung kanilang mga aluminum or whatever. No? Yung mga shutters sila, sarado pa rin. So, kakapkapan ka pa ng gwardiya pagpasok mo para bumili ng hamburger. So, yun ang sitwasyon. So, we now have the information about last slide siguro. Nagkababa natin. Oops, wala pa. Okay. Sandali lang po, sandali lang. Okay. At least you'll have an idea what it is. Groceries lang ang bukas sa Zamboanga. Even petroleum stations, petrol shops, are closed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The gasoline stations. Wala kang makikita dahil takot sila dahil may curfew. And by the way, while the government has not said there is curfew in Zamboanga, there is a curfew from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. Oh, well, good. Mabuti sinabi nila. Kaya lang, pag kumain ka sa restaurant, alas 7, wala ka ng order, umuwi na kusinero. So, how can that be fun for tourism? It's good that flights have resumed. However, we get to see a lot of people na nagbaback out at the last minute. Kahapon, we were supposed to be 100 plus. We were less than 100 because about 25 backed out from the flight. And that's the situation in Zamboanga City. Kanina, yung kay Colonel Noble, walang sinunog na bahay. No? Wala. Basta declaration lang of an independence.
But
Okay.
even that, this uprising
Mikropono po.
really terrified people. In other words, the economic losses were also unimaginable, pero mas grabe ang nangyari ngayon sa...
How long did it take Cagayan de Oro to recover?
Well, not too long because after Noble surrender, di ba, peacefully,
And that's it.
back diretso naman ang parang operation na ganyan ng mga merkado, mga palengke, mga tindahan doon.
Okay. Paki-flash na po. Ito na.
So ito
Okay.
yung information of losses natin sa Zamboanga City. Over 331 million a day. Yesterday was the 14th day. No, so on the 14th day, 4.6 billion ang nawawala sa Zamboanga. Hindi pa natin na-compute dyan yung mga houses burn, yung mga private properties. Sa negosyo pa lang ito. Ito yung nawala sa Zamboanga. Ito yung economic losses natin sa Zamboanga.
So we have an idea of how big it is. 331,336,685 per day.
Our biggest fish cannery is in Zamboanga City. Okay, so we lost already 67 million. It's a fish cannery.
Okay. We will open the floor to questions from our colleagues from the media. We have a microphone here. Please state your name and the entity you represent. We're ready for the questions. We'd like to acknowledge the arrival of our good friend, Mentong Laurel. Okay. So, kanine, balikan ko lang. Sol? Please, sige. Pakilapit lang po sa gripo. Yan.
Solvency sa bulletin. Ang question ko dun sa sanitation, marami kasi akong updates na nakuha sa bagong, hindi na masyadong bago pero ginagamit ko sa ibang bansa na development sa toilet, no? Yung po people, yung disposable na organic na nagiging
The PUNP.
Ginagamit nyo na ba? Kung hindi pa, bakit hindi nyo pa nagagamit cost-wise ba?
Yung PUNP, we have introduced that already in Iloilo, Albay, and some of our housing projects. But the PUNP is good for permanent shelter. For evacuation center, the PUNP technology is not good. Kasi kailangan mo talaga siyang i-separate yung PU and the P. Tapos, then, then kinokollect yun, then may management yung ginagawa. Tinuturo sa mga tao yun. Yes. At this stage, parang we cannot really teach people who are in the stage of crisis. So, parang we want to give them emergency latrine, yung meron pa rin hukay, but the technology is may barrel sa baba to collect. Tapos, may maintenance pa rin, pero hindi kasing hirap mag-maintain ng portalet. I believe even if we get all the portalets in the whole country, put them in the grandstand, it's still not enough. Kasi ang ratio in an emergency should be 1 latrine to 50 people. Pag hindi emergency, 1 to 25. So, but emergency situations, 1 to 50. Pero ngayon, it's 1 to over 100,000. 100,000, I mean. 1,000.
Paano yun? It's no joke, really.
Technology naman na may parang supot or plastic na meron siyang chemical sa loob. So pag nag-PUNP ka, mag-perform yun, then you can throw it away, biodegradable yun. But as of now, wala ring spaces ang Zamboanga to dump it o kung saan nilalagay.
That's the situation, really. Okay. Kanine, you're considered to be an expert in local government units. Ano ba basic requirement for one to become a mayor or a councilor, a vice mayor, or a barangay captain? Ano ba basic requirements doon? Dahilan sa yung LG, I don't know.
If you talk about basic requirement, wala doon. Because the basic requirement should be the heart and the mind, dedicated to the welfare of the people. What the law defines are merely qualification as to age, literacy. Sa literacy, able to read and write. And the same qualification for the barangay official, the mayor, and the president, able to read and write.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these people are able to write, but they will not even be able to read what they are writing. So, you see how difficult, if you talk about mere qualifications, napakahirap ang sitwasyon. And that is why it's very important that the people would know itong mga tao na tatakbo, talaga ba may puso at may damdamin para sa kanilang kaunlaran? Because without that, you can have all the PhDs, after your name, attorney ka, PhD, doctor, whatever, it will not matter in the end.
Really? Okay. So it appears, Senator Nene, that common sense is uncommon these days. It's uncommon for one to have common sense. Di po ba? Lumalabas na we are desperately looking for people who will inspire us. But what do you think of the President's lengthy stay in Zamboanga? What has it accomplished from the outside looking in?
Okay. From what I could gather from friends in the area who would, with texting and all that, we get a sense of what is happening. And it seems that while he was there, he inspired the people that the President, is physically with us. So that maasahan nyo na ang gobyerno hindi kayo pinababayaan. That was the main message. And more directly, he was telling the Moro rebels, huwag niyong gawin yan sapagkat dudurugin kayo namin. In other words, they will use force, which incidentally has been proven to be ineffective in addressing the Moro secessionist movements or the uprising of the Moros. They have used force since the beginning of time. Mga Kastila, Amerikano, ang gobyerno natin, hanggang ngayon, nandiyan pa yung problema. You see? So force is not the solution at all. It has to be something else.
Okay, now let me ask you another question, Kanene. You're very closely associated with the Vice President, Jejo Marbinay. Anong sabi sa iyo ni Jojo? Was he given the go signal by the President to negotiate with Miswari? Or did he do it on his own? Or was it Marrojas who caused all the troubles?
I hope not. I mean, all I can say, I have not talked to Jojo about it. You shouldn't able to make that very plain. But it looks like the aspect, his intentions were good, no question about it. But the procedure might have been a little flawed in the sense that mga bagay na yun, especially with the president present at the site of the conflict, you cannot, undermine, you might say, the presidential prerogative of being able to tell the people, ako ang solusyon yan, hindi kayo. So, kulang lang siguro ng coordination and things would have turned out a little better because really, ceasefire was the most important thing there. And I'm not a military expert, but I've been reading history, for example, in Malaysia, when they were fighting the insurgency in Malaysia, Malaysian troops applied what they would call a surgical operation regarding the presence of insurgents embedded in the villages. You cannot just use helicopters and shell the village, because if you do that, then invariably most of the casualties will be non-combatants. Kawawa na mga tao, mga bata, babae, elderly tulad ko, tamaan biro mo.
Hindi na kayo makakatakbo yun.
Hirap na tumakbo.
Opo.
So you see how difficult that would be if you use just the superior force of government to wipe out some rebels who are supposedly holding out, let us say, in the villages, holding hostages who are non-combatants. So napakahirap yung solusyon na yun. Sheer force just to teach them a lesson, hindi obra yun.
Okay. There was this incident in Zamboanga some 13 years ago. Gwen, maybe you were just in the elementary grades at the time. Bata pa kayo nun. I was told that when the MNLF started taking hostages, then Mayor Lobregat said, we will give you a safe conduct pass, just leave and nobody gets arrested and nobody got killed. Kayo po ba kanina, naalala niyo yung pangyayari niyo?
Vaguely, but I recall that sila nga, they were trying to do that, and I think that in terms of casualties, medyo minos-minosan yung casualties na yun. And that was probably the most positive aspect of that negotiation.
Okay. Secretary General Gwen Pang, should people come to the Red Cross, what would you tell them to bring to help?
If they want to help, for now, we don't really need much food pag konti-konti. It should be bulk. Example, like a truckload of rice, a truckload of canned goods, mas okay yun. Kasi yung, like, we were asked by SM Foundation and BDO Foundation to help them ship their goods. Kasi kami may access in the area. So we can ship their goods, okay? So kinukuha namin, i-pick up namin sa, sa Cagayan de Oro, then we ship it to Zamboanga City. Okay sa amin yun, kung truckloads yun. Kung ang worth is over 1 million, yes, we ship them. Kung maliliit, mahirap to manage, okay? What we need now, actually, of course, we need money, we need funds to mobilize. But because there are items or goods that we need to buy in bulk. Example, we need to continue to produce water for people. So we buy this equipment, machine, yung supply na natin, pang water filtration, then medicines, no? Minsan nagbibigay sila 1 box of like this, no, we buy them by bulk. So madami yan. So maganda talaga in these incidents as huge as like this, kung di sila makabigay ng by bulk, they give us cash or money. Then, but we need a lot of support logistics. Trucks, yung mga ganyan, kailangan namin. Kasi ang daming pinapasok doon sa mga evacuation centers. We need to transport goods. Ang kailangan natin is to transport goods to Jolo and Basilan.
Okay, that's another concern, no?
Sana may private vessel who will be so much willing to send goods. Kasi we don't want to compete with the local market. If Red Cross will buy the goods in the market, paano yung mga ibang nangailangan sa lugar na yun? We don't want to compete with them. We want to bring in our own stock to help those in need in Basilan and Sulu.
But wouldn't it be more economical if you buy it from the area?
Kung may economic activity, kung mayroong marketplace open, kung may ganyan, it's more economical. It will help the local economy. But ngayon, sarado naman lahat. Wala naman tayo mabibilan. Wala rin shipment of goods. We cannot buy bulk kasi yung iba nangangailangan din ng goods doon sa area. So we cannot do that.
Okay. Questions from the floor, from our friends from the media, from Channel 5, from Opinion, meron ba? From CCTV? Wala pa. Later. Okay, sige.
I want to
Yes,
inform them, Melo, that the SWD is actually the one handling all the evacuation centers. Tapos, they are consolidating all the support for different evacuation centers. Pero yung mga goods na napapadala sa kanila, they managed it. We were fortunately allowed by the SWD to manage our own goods on the ground. So we cook our own food, we bring our own food there, then we give it to the people that nangailangan. The DOH is in charge with the health, of course. So we also coordinate with them. We started giving vaccines to children from 0 to 6 years old last week, no? The target is to vaccinate 9,800 children for measles. Kasi nagkaroon na ng measles cases. Now, there are also a lot of cases for diarrhea, reported to us on diarrhea. Okay, watery and bloodstreak diarrhea. So, we are trying to rule out ano yung cause nito, and we are helping in hydration and in treatment of mga patients. Ang usually affected dito ay yung mga very, very young age and elderly. So, yun yung titingnan natin dito ngayon sa different evacuation centers in terms of health. Tsaka nag-deworming na rin kami.
Let me ask you, Gwen, how important is play therapy to the children in the area?
Very important yung play therapy for children. We have set up one play therapy. By today, we're setting up another play therapy. It's an area where we bring children in. May mga toys, may mga activities sila. Because that one, we can determine how the incident or the situation have affected them. No? Example, you can see them drawing. May makita ka mga missile o mga nasusunod na bahay. Mga ganon. Pero kapag ito na yung mga drawings nila, then we separate these kids, then we give them more support, no? More psychosocial support. Then yung mga makikita mo rin yung iba para bang nakakatuwa din, may mga drawing na I want to be a mayor, I want to be a paglaki ko gusto ko maging sundalo and I will help in ganon. So pag mga ganon naman, very positive, then we continue giving them care. So very important yung play therapy. Ang lang doon is what they're playing, mga toys na used toys din. So, pag mga ganun, sinaseparate namin, pag mga toy na wala ng kamay, di namin binibigay na sa kanila. Diba? Kasi, yun na nga yung situation where they're in now eh. Oo. So, parang mamukhang casualty naman. So, yun, yung mga gusto magbigay din ng mga toys, buuhin naman ninyo kasi kawawa naman yung mga bata. Okay? So,
Okay.
hindi reflective ng what we want to do in the play therapy. It's not therapeutic.
Okay. We can understand that. Dahil sa kung disabled na yung laruan, disabled pa yung mga bata, mahirapan talaga tayo dyan. Okay. Hanggang kailan ito? Yung play therapy sessions?
Tuloy-tuloy po to hanggat nasa mga evacuation center tayo. Pero yung mga ibang kailan namin refer, some of the cases, we make referrals already. Yung mga alam namin na medyo, we'll need more psychosocial care, experts level. So we started referring them. In fact, not only them, not only mga evacuees, even our own personnel and and volunteers, we will start giving them debriefing or psychosocial care because this is already third week and very stressful for them. While they're working, they hear sounds of firefighting. They see, nakikita ko doon, you saw that Melo, nag-uusok-usok doon, isa may sunog na naman. So, we will start giving psychosocial care for our personnel and volunteers as well.
Okay.
It's very important.
Kanina may tanong dito from the audience, yun ba ang residence requirement para sa pagboto? Palagi pang barangay ito eh. Is residence a requirement for voting?
Yes, yes. Whether the election is for barangay official or for any other public official, residence is a requirement, and you must be a resident of the place. Let us say, I think, for at least 6 months prior to the election.
But what if you're in Zamboanga, nasunog yung bahay mo, nasa evacuation center ka? Which residence are we talking about?
Well, the residence that was destroyed by the fire or by the incident, for example, would still be your legal residence.
Okay. One thing I heard in Zamboanga is not all the evacuees are certain to return to their places of origin because most of them do not own the land. And the landowners may no longer allow them to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
So, ano pong sitwasyon kaya yun?
Yeah, but nonetheless, for purposes of the election, you can still claim na as of the last time before the incident happened, yun ang residence mo.
Okay. So, you cannot just be accommodated in another barangay.
Well, there has to be a process. May yung transferring of your right to vote. Mahaba yun. So, ang suggestion ko, because the elections will be on October 28.
Yes.
28 ba yun? If I'm not
Opo.
mistaken.
Opo, 28.
It might be too late for them to go through the process of changing residences legally. So they might as well stay put kung saan sila bumoboto noon doon pa rin.
Okay. Do you have any prognosis for the coming barangay elections? They say barangay elections are usually bloody.
Napakalungkot yung pangyayari because as of last night, I was checking the pages of our local newspapers. 98 na ang casualty sa barangay-related election. 98. Basta one half of that parang barangay, punong barangay, the rest are barangay councilors. So you can just imagine na ganun katindi ang eleksyon ngayon sa barangay, which should not be the case.
Okay, Gwen, have you considered at the Red Cross itong emergency na mangyayari aside from Zamboanga and Olongapo and other areas? Baka mga ilangan ng dugo for the coming barangay elections, literally and figuratively.
Of course, we always make projections, no? Like in Zamboanga, we have served 700 bags of blood. We were there first. First day pa lang, may dugo na tayo naibigay sa mga hospitals. Also in Basilan. We always, every day in Red Cross is always an emergency day. So, lagi meron kaming number of bags required na nasa stock namin. Parang may barometer. Pag bumaba, dapat we fill up again. So, our daily blood supply, we should have at least 2,600 bags a day. That should be enough to supply the nationwide requirement for blood. Pero kung in terms of emergency, we double. So, pag halimbawa, mga Christmas, mga Holy Week, mga ganyan, so nag-double kami ng amount of blood. We are ready. In fact, ngayon may dengue case tayo sa La Union. So, we are also supporting a lot La Union.
Okay.
So, ready tayo.
Thank you. Kanine, isang tanong for our friends from the media who came in a bit late. Coming from the outside, looking in to the Zamboanga incident, what would have caused the uprising, rebellion, whatever?
More directly, it's I might say insensitivity on the part of the government in parang telling Miss Wari, hindi ka nakasali dito. Parang ganun. I'm not saying that they did that in those actual terms, but the effect of their conversation with the MILF, parang tabi muna kayo pare ko ha, dito muna kami. So in the process, para bagang siguro nasaktan si Ms. Wari na ba't hindi siya kasali dito sa pag-uusap. Now, which means I think that aspect of parang factional approach in the negotiations for peace in Mindanao certainly will not work. It has to be holistic. Lahat ng mga Moro peoples included sa pag-uusap, and you must have a workable solution to address the concerns, the just aspirations of the Moro peoples, whoever they might be, whether they belong to the MILF, the MNLF, or the BFF, or whatever FF would arise later on. Basta inclusive yun, then you have more chances of effecting a just and lasting peace than a factional approach to the problem.
Have you ever entertained thoughts that there must have been somebody who financed Ms. Wari to do all this?
You should ask Miriam, not me.
Thank you very much for the candid answer. We have a question from the floor. Please. Please identify yourself.
Morning, Joel Sarsa from Newsmaker, and kasama ko sa GC sa Kabayan. Tatay Nini, ano po masasabi niyo dito sa Kabataan Barangay sa SK at ba't hindi, kasi concerned ako, itong mga kabataan, ito dapat medyo sundan natin. Wala pang nauumbudsman sa kabataan ng mga kaso, hindi except itong mga official.
Ang pinakahuling narinig ko, the COMELEC has decided not, the legislative branch, meaning to say Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate have decided not to hold barangay elections and to prevent a holdover of those who had been elected as barangay Sangguniang Kabataan members. Now, which means in effect that there is no more Sangguniang Kabataan siguro by the time their term is over, which should coincide with the holding of the elections, if I'm not mistaken, on October 28. Now,
28, opo.
I also want you to consider this, that when I was still in the Senate, I was going around the country, and one time I was in Samar. And here was this mayor who approached me, sabi niya, di ba pwede i-abolish yung sangguniang kabataan? Remember, this was mga 2008 siguro. Huh? We are now 2013, My term ended in 2010. No? Yung 2008, I was going around talking with the local government officials, trying to find out anong mga amendments na pwede natin gawin sa local government code. And this mayor said, i-abolish na natin yung kabataan barangay. So sabi ko sa kanya, akala ko ba anak mo yung chairman ng kabataan barangay? Oo nga, kaya nga gusto kong ma-abolish na sabagat wala daw siya nakikita na substantial contribution to the development of their community coming from the Sangguniang Kabataan. Please know that as of this year, 2013 na yun, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, more than 5 billion ang share ng internal revenue allotment ng Sangguniang Kabataan. 5 billion. And yet, what do we see for that amount? No? So, ganun siguro ang reason kung ba't tinanggal muna, because I think they are trying to visualize what to do next. My proposal is this, that the Sangguniang Kabataan should be abolished as a council. As a council. Sapagkat as a council, you have a chairman, Sangguniang Kabataan chairman, and kung hindi ako nagkakamali, 7 members. 7 members. So tanggalin mo na yung council, pero they should have one kabataang representative who should be elected with the Sangguniang barangay. Para hindi naman nila masabi na binaliwala mo na lang sila. So that's my proposition.
Kaya yung mga congressman natin gustong tanggalin yung mga project kasi itong kalaban nila sa mga project sa mga basketball court, etc. etc.
Well, tulad ng sinabi ko, that is the net effect of the proposal of the House of Representatives and of the Senate as of today. Wala na silang representation whatsoever.
Okay, we have a question from the floor. Yes, please.
Good morning to the panelists. I'd like to inquire about this Senator Nene Pimentel, the former senator.
Yes.
I know you are the father of the local government code. I just this struck me a month ago with regards to the system what we have with all the problems like the pork barrel, excessive use of the money, of the people's money, and asserting the balance of power like the executive, judiciary, and legislative. It seems that citizenry was given power also, and that power was one day every 3 years, and one day every 6 years, and that is the power to vote to change the leaders. So, when I did my research with regards to the system, because it seems the problem is systemic, Senator. When the Greek invented democracy, the word democracy, it has this wider participation. It is participatory in nature. But what we have here, as a part of the research, what they have in America, what they have in South America, in the U.S. and also in Europe, it is that the democratic system is wider participations of the people.
So what is the question, sir?
The question, sir, here is, if the problem is systemic, do you think by empowering or institutionalization of the People's Council as the fourth pillars in the balance of power?
Let me respond to your question in this manner. Number one, I do not wish you to continue calling me the father of the local government code, because my wife will, resent that na meron pa pala akong iba pang anak. You see, well, anyway,
Okay.
regarding the issue that you brought out, let's talk about PDAP muna, ha?
Yes.
The PDAP is not evil per se. It is the misuse of PDAP that is evil. Pag ninakaw na yung pera ng mga naukulang legislators, then, of course, it's a very bad thing, no? But if used properly, the intention for which is to make up for the neglect of, let us say, the national government or even the local government in addressing certain areas of concern, how can that be bad? Basta't hindi lang nakawin yung pera, yun ang problema roon. Now, let me just give you a very specific example. Several years ago, while I was still in the Senate, may lumapit sa aking 3 maestra. Sabi nila, sir, pwede bang bigyan mo kami ng PDAP? Bakit? Anong gawin mo? Gawin ninyo. Sabi nila, magtayo kami, ipaayos namin yung eskwelahan, classrooms namin doon. 3 ata classroom doon. So, sabi ko, hindi ko man trabaho yan. Trabaho ng DepEd yun. Sabi nila, hindi nga kami nasikaso eh. Now, sometimes that happens because the teachers may be, or the school might be located in a place that is run by the opposition. So, hindi tutulungan. So, kalaban yun sa politika eh. Kalaban ni Mayor, kalaban ni Gobernador, whatever. Kalaban ng mga malaking tao. This is where the money that manggaling sa kamay ng mga congressmen at mga senador could make up for that problem. And so, to make a long story short, sabi ko, yes, sige, magkano mo yan? Siguro, let's use a round figure, about 500,000, ano? So, within the year, natapos yung project, balik na naman ang mga maestra. Sabi na, pwede bang, Senator, pwede bang pumunta ka roon at ikaw ang mag-inaugurate? So sabi ko, hindi ko naman ginagawa yun because hindi ko naman pera yun eh. Pera ng bayan yun. But anyway, they insisted, punta ka na because we are talking about Apari. I don't know, Melo, kung alam mo yung Apari, it's near heaven already, napakalayo.
Napakalayo niya.
Well, anyway, pumunta ako. You know what I saw when I arrived early morning of that day? The school children were nandun sila sa on the streets, waving flags. Parang si Pacquiao ako na umuwi na. Nagkagulo ang taong bayan. Simple amount. So you can say, kung ayusin lang ang paggamit ng PDAP na yun, maraming mga taong matutulungan. Now, should we have a people's council? Is the right of the people only to vote at certain? No. The people can even file recall proceedings. Maraming mga proseso na nandyan na sa batas now. But more directly, the people should speak out. I believe that our rights as a people will have no meaning unless we assert them. At that includes magsalita ka, especially with the help of media. Sapagkat ang media lang ang pwedeng magkalat sa mga naisipan ng taong bayan in a manner na marami ang makakaalam noon. Without media, napakahirap yung free speech na ang epekto ng free speech na pinag-uusapan natin.
Thank you po sa paliwanag. Ngayon po, kung may mga karagdagan na pwede palahong gawin sa ikaunlad ng ating bayan, ako po naman ay nakahandang makipag-usap sa inyo kung ano yung mga idea na sa dami nung matatalinong tao naman sa Pilipinas, baka ho may mga missing gaps lang ho. I'm willing to share my thoughts with you at your convenient time. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Mga kaibigan, we're about to close the forum. Final statements from Senator Nene.
Well, ako po yung magpapasalamat and this is just an idea. Gusto ko sana Melo at saka si Bentong at iba pang mga media organizations dito na kung maaari bigyan natin ng parangal ang Red Cross. Not Red Cross as Red Cross, but especially yung mga tao roon sa Zamboanga whom they can identify. because alam nila kung sino yung mga tao yun na dapat siguro mabigyan natin ng parangal. Probably if we can raise some money for them, why not? I mean, that would be a good gesture. We appreciate what a courageous sector or society is doing for the people in need. Napakahirap yung ginawa nila. It's not easy na magpaparada ka roon, nakabandera ka, baka targeted ka patuloy ng mga extremists. But they did it. And I think we should appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Kanene. Gwen, a message para sa mga kapatid natin, sa mga nasa television, nanonood, sa kanilang mga tahanan, what can they do to help people in Zamboanga?
Thank you very much, Melo. Thank you very much, Senator Pimentel, for the recognition and appreciation of the work of the Red Cross. Tuloy-tuloy po ang Red Cross. Walang patid na sumusuporta sa ating mga brothers and sisters sa Zamboanga City. Tuloy-tuloy din po yung pangailangan din kasi doon sa ground. Huwag po natin silang kakalimutan. At saka nagpapasalamat po ako sa ating mga volunteers at staff members na tuloy-tuloy pong tumutulong na kahit sila mismo ay apektado din nitong violence sa Zamboanga City. Marami po tayong pangailangan doon tulad ng gamot, ng mga non-food items, yung mga banig, kumot, kulambo, na nawalan po sila ng gamit. Ngayong araw po mag-set up po tayo ng ating field hospital dahil palaki po yung problema doon sa kalusugan, sa health. So sinisiguro po ng Red Cross na matugunan ng pansin itong mga ganito. So, yun po, sana po matulungan nyo kami para tuloy-tuloy po yung pagtulong ng Red Cross ito po sa Mindanao, sa Zamboanga City at sa mga iba pang nangailangan ng mga lugar pa. Salamat.
On that note, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Maraming salamat kay Senator Nene, kay Gwen Pang ng Philippine Red Cross, mga kaibigan natin sa The Aristocrat for being the home of Tapatan for several months, and it will go on. I was reminded of what Monsignor Crisologo Manonga said when we parted our ways at the cathedral last Saturday night. He just simply said, "Vaya con Dios." Thank you.